I had never intended to text my CEO, especially not at 6:15 in the morning. Especially not with only 2 words, "I'm sick." The message was supposed to go to my younger brother. Instead, I sent it to Dr. Celeste Rowan, founder and CEO of Rowan Biomedical, the most disciplined woman in Harbor Point. She was the woman employees called the Ice Queen when they were certain she could not hear them, and unfortunately, my boss. My name was Julian Mercer. I worked as a clinical data manager at Rowan Biomedical. It was a medical technology company known for producing diagnostic systems used in hospitals across the country. I had worked there for nearly 4 years, long enough to know that Celeste Rowan never canceled meetings. She did not arrive late. She did not take personal calls during business hours. And she definitely did not respond to casual messages from employees before sunrise. That was why I stared at my phone in horror when I realized what I had done. The message had been delivered, then read. I immediately typed another one. "Sorry, Dr. Rowan. Wrong person. I'll still come in." 3 dots appeared, then disappeared, then appeared again. Her reply came 30 seconds later. "No, stay home." I frowned. Before I could answer, another message arrived. "Temperature?" I stared at the screen. That was not the response I expected. I touched my forehead. I had been coughing all night, and my body felt like it had been thrown down a staircase. Still, admitting weakness to Celeste Rowan felt more dangerous than attending work sick. Probably just a cold. Her answer arrived instantly. That was not my question. Even through a text message, she sounded like she was sitting at the head of a conference table. I found the thermometer in my bathroom cabinet. A minute later, the number appeared. 102.1 F. The typing indicator returned. "Do not leave your apartment." I smiled weakly. I wasn't planning to run a marathon. There was a longer pause this time. Then, Julian. Just my name. Somehow, that was more intimidating than a full paragraph. Understood. I put my phone down and tried to sleep. At 7:30, I woke to 12 missed calls from my team. The first message was from my coworker, Miles. "What did you do?" The second, the board meeting was cancelled. I sat up too quickly and immediately regretted it. The board meeting. Today's board meeting was one of the most important in Rowan Biomedical's history. Celeste was supposed to present the final acquisition plan for a European research company. It had taken months to prepare. She had personally reviewed every number. Investors had flown in from 3 countries. Celeste Rowan did not cancel meetings like that. I called Miles. He answered immediately. "Julian? Yes. You're alive." "Barely. What happened?" "I'm sick." "I know that part." His voice lowered. "Why did Dr. Rowan cancel the board meeting?" My headache grew worse. "What?" She walked into the executive room at 7 o'clock, told everyone the meeting was postponed, handed control to the vice president, and left. That makes no sense. Exactly. Maybe there was an emergency. Miles was silent for a moment. Then he asked, "Did you text her?" I looked at my phone. "Accidentally." He groaned. "Oh, no. It was 2 words." "What 2 words?" "I'm sick." There was another silence. Then Miles whispered, "You canceled a billion-dollar meeting with 2 words?" "I did not cancel anything. Tell that to the board." I ended the call before he could say more. I tried texting Celeste again. "I heard about the meeting. Please don't cancel anything because of me. I'm fine." The message remained unread. That worried me more than a reply would have. At 8:10, someone knocked on my apartment door. I assumed it was Miles bringing work documents. I dragged myself out of bed, wrapped a blanket around my shoulders, and opened the door. Then I froze. Celeste Rowan stood in the hallway, not her assistant, not a delivery driver, Celeste herself. She wore a charcoal coat over a pale blouse, her dark hair pulled into its usual neat style. In one hand, she held a pharmacy bag. In the other, she carried a paper bag from the soup restaurant near our office. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Finally, I managed, "Dr. Rowan?" Her eyes moved over my face. "You look worse than your message suggested." I tightened the blanket around myself. "You canceled the board meeting." "I postponed it." "For me?" She stepped forward. "You have a fever. There are investors waiting. They can wait." I stared at her. The most controlled woman I had ever met had just dismissed an international board meeting as if it were a minor inconvenience. "Celeste." She raised one eyebrow. I rarely used her first name. Apparently, fever had destroyed my survival instincts. She looked at the open doorway. "Are you going to let me in?" I moved aside. She entered my apartment and immediately noticed the medicine cabinet standing open. The empty water bottle sat on the table, and last night's food remained untouched. Her expression cooled. You haven't eaten. I wasn't hungry. You need food before taking medicine. You bought medicine? She placed the pharmacy bag on the table. Fever reducer, cough medicine, electrolyte solution, and a new thermometer. I looked inside. She had bought everything, not randomly, either. Every item matched my symptoms. You knew what to get? My mother was a physician. That explains some of it. Not why the CEO of Rowan Biomedical had personally gone to a pharmacy at 8 o'clock in the morning. Celeste opened the soup container and handed me a spoon. Eat? I stared at her. You canceled a board meeting, drove across Harbor Point, bought medicine, and came to my apartment because I sent the wrong text. Her hand stopped. For the first time, she did not have an immediate answer. Then she said quietly, the text was sent to the wrong person. I waited, but the message reached the right one. My fever had to be worse than I thought. What does that mean? Celeste looked at me. The Ice Queen expression was gone. She looked tired, worried, almost angry that I had forced her to show it. It means, she said, you always help everyone else before they ask. She placed the medicine beside me. And when you finally needed someone, even by accident, I was not going to ignore you. I could not speak. Celeste Rowan had built a company, led thousands of employees, and faced investors without ever revealing uncertainty. Yet she was standing in my apartment watching to make sure I ate soup. I took a spoonful. She relaxed slightly. Better? I smiled. Yes. Good. She sat in the chair across from me. You can go now, I said. I'll take the medicine. No, I'm staying until your temperature comes down. I laughed weakly. You have an entire company to run. Her gaze held mine. And I have one employee who thinks he has to be useful every second to deserve care. The words hit harder than I expected. Before I could answer, she reached forward and placed the back of her hand against my forehead. Her fingers were cool. Her expression softened. Then she whispered, almost to herself, you should have told me sooner. That was when I understood something terrifying. Celeste Rowan had not cancelled the board meeting because I was an employee. She had cancelled it because I was me. Celeste stayed. That fact felt more impossible than the fever. She moved through my apartment with the same calm efficiency she used in meetings. She filled a glass with water, checked the dosage on the medicine, opened the electrolyte drink, and placed everything in a neat row on the coffee table. Then she looked at me. Take these after you finish the soup. I leaned against the couch, still wrapped in my blanket. You know I'm capable of reading instructions. I know. Then why are you watching me like I might secretly throw the medicine away? Because you told me you were fine with a temperature of 102. That was optimism. That was stupidity. I laughed, which immediately turned into a cough. Celeste's expression tightened. She reached for the water before I could. Slowly, I accepted the glass. You sound less like my CEO and more like an angry doctor. My mother would be offended by that comparison. Why? She was much more patient. That surprised another laugh out of me. Celeste watched me for a second and the corner of her mouth moved. It was barely a smile, but I noticed. I always noticed. After I finished half the soup, she handed me the medicine. I took it without arguing. Happy? I asked. No. What else do I have to do? Finish eating. Celeste. Julian. There was my name again. I surrendered. For the next 20 minutes, I ate while she answered emails on her phone. She never complained about the board meeting or mentioned the investors waiting for her. She simply sat across from me, replying to messages with one hand and checking my face every few minutes. It should have felt awkward. Instead, it felt strangely natural. That was the dangerous part. I had liked Celeste for longer than I wanted to admit. Not because she was beautiful, though she was. Not because she was powerful, though everyone in Harbor Point knew her name. I liked the hidden parts of her. The way she quietly paid for an employee's surgery and refused to let the company publish it. The way she remembered the names of interns. The way she stayed until midnight whenever her team worked late, even when no one expected her to. She was not cold. She was careful. There was a difference. Most people never waited long enough to see it. I had. And somewhere along the way, respect had become something far more dangerous. I never told her. There was no point. She was the CEO. I was a clinical data manager. We worked in the same company, but we did not live in the same world. At least, that was what I had always told myself. Then she canceled a board meeting and showed up at my apartment with medicine. My phone began vibrating on the table. Miles. Then another message. Then another. Celeste glanced at the screen. You should turn that off. It's probably work. You are not working today. I can answer one question. No. I looked at her. Is that an order? Yes. You enjoy saying that. I enjoy being obeyed when I am correct. That must be exhausting. You think you're always correct. She met my eyes. I usually am. I smiled. There's the CEO. Her expression softened. And there you are. I paused. What does that mean? You are teasing me again. I didn't know that was important. It is. The room became quieter. Celeste looked down at her phone, but she did not type. I studied her. Were you worried? She did not answer immediately. That alone told me enough. Celeste? Yes. The honesty startled me. How worried? She locked her phone and placed it on the table. When I received your message, I called you twice. I frowned. I didn't see any calls. You did not answer. I was probably asleep. I know that now. Her voice remained controlled, but there was tension beneath it. At the time, I did not know whether you had a cold, whether you were in the hospital, or whether something worse had happened. You thought something serious happened because I said I was sick. You never asked for help. I became quiet. She continued. You stayed overnight during the Viridian trial because the database failed. You drove miles to the emergency room when his daughter was injured. You covered 3 departments during the winter outbreak. Her gaze held mine. You never complain. So, when you sent me those words, I assumed it was serious. The realization settled slowly. Celeste had noticed all of it. The late nights, the small favors, the things I did without thinking anyone paid attention. You remember that much about me? Yes. Why? Her eyes shifted away. I pay attention to my employees. I smiled faintly. All 2,000 of them? Her silence answered before she did. No. The word was almost too quiet to hear. I felt my heartbeat change. The fever made it difficult to think clearly, but not that difficult. Then why me? Celeste stood and walked toward the window. For several seconds, she stared at the street below. When she finally spoke, her voice was lower. Do you remember the night of the Meridian launch 2 years ago? Yes. Of course I remembered. It had been the biggest product release in company history. The entire executive team had celebrated at a rooftop restaurant. Celeste had disappeared before dessert. I found her alone on the service stairs, breathing too quickly, one hand pressed against the railing. Everyone called her fearless. That night, I realized she had panic attacks. I had sat beside her without asking questions. I did not call anyone. I did not tell anyone afterward. I simply stayed until she could breathe normally again. You promised you would never mention that night, she said. I never did. I know. She turned toward me. That was the first time anyone saw me lose control and did not use it against me. I sat very still. Celeste walked back to the couch. You did not treat me differently the next morning. You did not become overly careful. You did not look at me with pity. You didn't need pity. What did I need? Someone to sit on the stairs with you. Her eyes softened. Yes. She sat beside me this time, not across from me. The distance between us suddenly felt much smaller. I have trusted you since that night, she said. I looked at her. Trust does not usually involve canceling board meetings. No. Then what does? She lowered her gaze to her hands. For the first time since I had known her, Celeste Rowan looked uncertain. I am still trying to answer that. Before I could respond, my phone rang again. This time, Celeste reached for it first. I raised an eyebrow. Are CEOs allowed to confiscate personal phones? Only in medical emergencies. This is not a medical emergency. You are wearing a blanket like a cape and arguing with your medication schedule. That is not a recognized symptom. It is now. She turned the phone over. A message preview appeared on the screen. Miles, the board is asking why she left. People saw her buying medicine near your building. This is becoming a thing. Celeste read it. Her expression became unreadable again. I felt the warmth in the room disappear. This is exactly what I was worried about, I said. She looked at me. What? People talking. They always talk. Not like this. I pushed the blanket aside and sat straighter. You canceled a major meeting and came here personally. If anyone finds out, they already have. That doesn't concern you? No. It should. Why? Because you're the CEO. Her gaze sharpened. And you are ill. That is not the same level of importance. Celeste's face changed. Not anger, exactly. Hurt. She stood. Do not say that again. I stared at her. What? That you are less important because of my position. I didn't say I was less important. You did. Her voice remained quiet, but every word landed clearly. You simply used different language. I looked away. Celeste stepped closer. I cancelled a meeting because it could be rescheduled. I came here because you needed someone. You didn't know that. I knew you were alone. That stopped me. She was right. My brother lived in another state. My parents were gone. Most of my friends had families and demanding jobs. I had been alone. I just had not thought it mattered. Celeste did. She checked the thermometer again and handed it to me. Take your temperature. I obeyed. A minute later, it read 100.7. She visibly relaxed. It is coming down. Then you can go back to work. No. I sighed. Celeste. She sat beside me again. I moved the meeting to tomorrow afternoon. You postponed it an entire day? Yes. For a fever? For you. The words came too easily this time. Neither of us moved. I looked at her, searching for the controlled CEO expression. It was gone. She seemed to realize what she had said, but she did not take it back. Instead, she reached for the blanket and pulled it over my shoulder. Sleep, she said. And when I wake up, I will still be here. I should have argued. I should have reminded her about the company. Instead, exhaustion finally won. I leaned back against the couch and closed my eyes. The last thing I felt before falling asleep was Celeste's hand brushing my hair away from my forehead. The last thing I heard was her quiet voice answering a call. No, do not send anyone here. A pause. Then, Julian is resting. Not Mr. Mercer. Not my employee. Julian. When I woke 2 hours later, Celeste was still beside me. Her laptop was open, reports spread across the table. But one of her hands was holding mine, and she was asleep, too. When I opened my eyes, the apartment was quiet. For one confused second, I forgot why Celeste Rowan was asleep beside me. Then I saw the medicine on the table, the empty soup container, her laptop resting across her knees, and her hand still holding mine. I did not move. Celeste looked different when she slept, less guarded. The tension she carried through every meeting had disappeared from her face. A loose strand of dark hair had fallen across her cheek, and her fingers rested around mine as though she had reached for me without realizing it. I should have pulled away. Instead, I watched her for another few seconds. Then her phone vibrated. Celeste woke instantly. Her eyes opened, sharp and alert, and she looked first at me, not the phone. You're awake. So are you. She glanced down at our hands. For the first time since I had known her, the CEO of Rowan Biomedical looked genuinely embarrassed. She released me and straightened. I must have fallen asleep. You did. For how long? Long enough to use my hand as a pillow substitute. Her expression returned to its usual calm. I was not using it as a pillow. No. What would you call it? She picked up her phone. Monitoring your circulation. I laughed. Celeste ignored me, but the faint color in her cheeks betrayed her. She checked the screen. Her expression changed. What happened? I asked. She did not answer immediately. That was never a good sign. Celeste. The board meeting has been moved forward. To today? 2 hours from now. I sat up. Then you need to leave. She looked at me. Your fever? Check it. She handed me the thermometer. A minute later, the screen showed 99.4. Almost normal, I said. You are still sick. And you are still the CEO of a company with investors waiting. Her gaze remained on the thermometer. I knew she wanted to argue. Go, I said more gently. I'll stay in bed. I'll take the medicine. I'll even finish the electrolyte drink that tastes like melted plastic. It is lemon. That does not improve it. She almost smiled. Then her phone rang again. This time she answered. Yes. Her voice became professional immediately. I watched the transformation happen. The woman who had fallen asleep holding my hand disappeared behind the CEO everyone knew. Though, begin without me if necessary. A pause. I will arrive in 30 minutes. She ended the call. You should go, I repeated. Celeste closed her laptop but did not stand. Will you call me if your temperature rises? Yes. Immediately? Yes. Not after deciding whether it is serious enough. I sighed. Immediately. And you will not work. I'll try. Julian. I will not work. She finally stood. At the door, she stopped and turned back. For a moment, she seemed to want to say something. Instead, she walked toward me and placed the back of her hand against my forehead one last time. You're cooler. That is the nicest thing you have ever said to me. I meant your temperature. I know. Her hand remained there for half a second longer than necessary. Then she stepped away. Rest. Yes, Dr. Rowan. She gave me a warning look. I smiled. Good luck with the board. Celeste's expression softened. Thank you. Then she left. The apartment felt strangely empty after the door closed. I had spent the entire morning trying to convince her to go. Now that she was gone, I wanted her back. That was a dangerous realization. At Rowan Biomedical, the board meeting had already begun when Celeste arrived. I knew this because Miles sent me updates every 5 minutes. She just walked in. Everyone stopped talking. Then, the investors know she was at your apartment. A minute later, this is no longer about the acquisition. I called him. He whispered when he answered. You are supposed to be resting. What is happening? Someone photographed Dr. Rowan leaving the pharmacy. That doesn't prove anything. They also photographed her entering your building. I closed my eyes. Of course they had. Harbor Point was full of reporters whenever a major acquisition involved Rowan Biomedical. Celeste's cancelled meeting had already attracted attention. Who showed the photos to the board? One of the investors brought them up. Why? Because they think her personal judgment is affecting company decisions. The same accusation people always used against powerful women. If she was cold, she was heartless. If she cared, she was irrational. I hated it. What did she say? That the board was welcome to review every decision she made. That sounds like her. She also said postponing one meeting did not endanger the company. Also sounds like her. Miles became quiet. What? She told them why she left. My chest tightened. What exactly did she say? She said an employee had a high fever and no one nearby to help. That's all? No. I waited. Miles lowered his voice further. She said she would make the same decision again. I looked toward the closed apartment door. Celeste had never apologized for coming. Not once. Even when I told her the rumors could hurt her. She had only told me not to call myself less important. Julian, Miles said. Yes? People are going to assume something is happening between you two. Nothing is happening. The answer came too quickly. Miles noticed. Right. I'm sick. She helped me. She canceled a board meeting. She postponed it. She bought medicine. She understands medical products. She slept at your apartment. I froze. How do you know that? You just told me. I ended the call. By the next morning, my fever was gone. The rumors were not. When I returned to work 2 days later, the lobby became silent. People tried not to stare. They failed. Miles met me near the elevator. You look better. I feel better. You also look like a man walking into his own public execution. That accurate? Very. The elevator doors opened. Celeste was inside. Alone. The employees around me suddenly found reasons not to enter. I stepped in. The doors closed. For several seconds, neither of us spoke. Celeste looked immaculate again. Dark suit, perfect posture, unreadable expression. But her eyes moved over my face, checking me. Temperature? Normal. Cough? Almost gone. Medicine? Finished. She nodded. Good. I smiled. There it is again. What? You're pretending this is a medical evaluation. It is. Then why is the entire company talking about us? Her expression did not change. Ignore them. That is easier for you. The elevator continued upward. Then she reached out and adjusted my crooked tie. The movement was gentle, familiar, far too intimate for an elevator with a security camera. I stopped breathing. Celeste seemed to realize what she was doing only after her fingers touched my collar, but she did not pull away. Instead, she straightened the tie carefully. You came back too early, she said. I was gone 2 days. You were ill. I'm better. Her eyes met mine. I know. The elevator reached the executive floor. The doors opened. 3 board members were standing outside. All 3 saw Celeste's hand still resting against my chest. Nobody spoke. Celeste slowly lowered it. I expected her to step away, to explain, to become the distant CEO again. Instead, she looked directly at the board members and said, Mr. Mercer will attend today's strategy meeting with me. One of them frowned. Is that necessary? Celeste's voice turned cold. Yes. Then she looked at me. Not like an employee, not like someone she needed to protect from rumors. Like someone she wanted beside her. Come with me, Julian. And for the first time, she did not care who saw me follow. The strategy meeting began at 9:30. I had attended dozens of meetings at Rowan Biomedical, but never one like this. Usually, I sat near the end of the table with the clinical data team. I presented numbers when asked, answered technical questions, then returned to my office before the executives began discussing budgets and acquisitions. This time, Celeste placed a folder beside the chair directly to her right. My name was printed on it. I stopped beside the table. You want me to sit here? Celeste looked up from her documents. Yes. That seat usually belongs to the chief operating officer. He is joining remotely. And every other chair is taken? No. Her expression made it clear she did not intend to explain further. I sat down. Across the table, 3 board members exchanged glances. One of them was Adrian Vale, the investor who had raised questions about Celeste leaving the previous meeting. He was in his late 40s, polished, confident, and skilled at making criticism sound like concern. Mr. Mercer, he said, I did not expect you to attend. I didn't either. Celeste opened the meeting file. Julian manages the clinical data involved in the acquisition. His attendance is relevant. Adrian leaned back. Of course. The way he said it made the meaning obvious. He did not believe I was there because of my work. The meeting began with the proposed acquisition of Halcyon Medical Research, a European company developing an early detection system for neurological conditions. Rowan Biomedical wanted its technology. Halcyon wanted access to our hospital network. On paper, the partnership looked perfect. But I had spent the last 3 months reviewing Halcyon's clinical records, and something had bothered me. Their success rate was too consistent. Medical data was never that clean. Patients dropped out. Hospitals made reporting errors. Trials produced unexpected results. Halcyon's reports looked almost perfect. I had mentioned it to my department director twice. He told me the figures had already been audited, so I stopped pushing. That morning, while the executives discussed acquisition costs, Celeste slid a note toward me. You disagree with something. I looked at her. She continued listening to the presentation as if she had not written anything. I wrote back, the clinical results are unusually consistent. She read it, then wrote, unnaturally good? Her eyes moved toward me. The presentation continued. Halcyon's representative displayed a chart showing a 94% diagnostic accuracy rate. Everyone around the table seemed impressed. Celeste did not react. When the representative finished, Adrian smiled. This is precisely why we should finalize the agreement today. Several board members nodded. Celeste turned toward me. Julian. Every person at the table looked in my direction. Yes? Do you agree with the findings? The safest answer would have been yes. The audit team had approved the data. The board supported the acquisition. Millions had already been spent preparing the agreement. I looked at the chart again. No. Silence filled the room. Adrian frowned. Excuse me? I opened the folder. The results are too consistent across sites. Halcyon's representative gave a polite smile. Our system performs consistently because it is effective. That is not what I mean. I pointed to the numbers. 5 hospitals used different patient groups, different equipment, and different testing schedules. Yet, the error rate differs by less than 0.5% at every location. The representative's smile disappeared. That proves our quality controls are working. No, it suggests the results may have been standardized after collection. The room became still. That was a serious accusation. My department director stared at me as though I had lost my mind. Julian, he said, the reports were independently reviewed. I know. Then perhaps this is not the appropriate place for speculation. Before I could answer, Celeste spoke. It is exactly the appropriate place. Her voice was calm, but the entire room shifted. She looked at me. What else did you find? I turned to the appendix. 47 patient records share identical symptom progression notes. Adrian shook his head. That could be a documentation template. It could, except the notes include identical spelling errors. Nobody interrupted this time. I continued. 3 hospitals supposedly entered the same incorrect phrase on different dates. In different countries, for different patients. Celeste's expression hardened. Did you report this? Yes. To whom? I named my department director. His face lost color. I was told the issue had already been reviewed, I added. Celeste turned toward him. Was it? He adjusted his tie. The audit team said the inconsistencies were minor. Who on the audit team? I would need to check. Celeste closed the acquisition folder. The signing is suspended. Adrian immediately leaned forward. Celeste, we cannot halt a major acquisition because one employee noticed repeated wording. One employee noticed something every paid auditor missed. We do not know that anything improper occurred. No, she said, which is why we will investigate before transferring several $100 million. Adrian's eyes moved between us. This decision will create more questions about your judgment. Celeste's expression became colder. What does that mean? It means people are already concerned that your relationship with Mr. Mercer affects your professional choices. My stomach tightened. There it was, the reason he had been waiting for. I started to speak, but Celeste raised one hand. Be precise, Adrian. He hesitated. You invited him into an executive meeting 2 days after canceling the board meeting to care for him. Now you are suspending an acquisition based on his opinion. His analysis, Celeste corrected. The distinction may not appear clear to investors. Celeste stood. She did not raise her voice. She never needed to. Then make it clear. The room went silent. Mr. Mercer identified duplicated clinical records that passed through 3 departments. His personal relationship with me, whatever you believe that relationship to be, does not alter the evidence. Adrian's jaw tightened. And if he is wrong? Then the investigation will prove it. And if this delay damages the acquisition? Then I will accept responsibility. He glanced at me. You are risking the company for him. Celeste looked directly at Adrian. No. Her voice was quiet. I am protecting the company because he was brave enough to say something everyone else ignored. Nobody spoke after that. The meeting ended 20 minutes later. The acquisition was frozen pending an independent investigation. Security collected the relevant records, and Celeste ordered all communication with Halcyon preserved. When everyone left, I remained in my chair. Celeste stood by the window reading an email. You believe me, I said. She looked up. Yes. You did not ask for proof before stopping the deal. You showed me proof. Not enough to confirm fraud. Enough to investigate. I looked at the empty chairs. You know Adrian will use this against you. He uses everything against me. This is different. Because it involves you? Yes. She placed her phone on the table. Julian, do you think I invited you here because I wanted you close to me? The question caught me off guard. I don't know. I did. My heartbeat changed. Then she continued. But I also invited you because you were excellent at your job. I stared at her. Celeste walked closer. Those two facts can exist at the same time. You just admitted you wanted me close. I did. She stopped beside my chair. Are you going to pretend you did not hear it? I'm trying to decide whether the fever came back. She touched my forehead before I could stop her. Her palm rested against my skin. No fever. Then I heard you correctly. Yes. Her hand lowered slowly. The office felt too quiet. I looked at her. What exactly are we doing, Celeste? For the first time all morning, she seemed uncertain. I don't know. That is not a very CEO answer. This is not a company decision. No, it would be easier if it were. I smiled faintly. You could make a 5-year plan. I already considered it. I laughed. She did not. You're serious? I like preparation. What would phase 1 be? Her eyes held mine. Finding out whether you feel the same way. The humor disappeared. She had stood before investors without hesitation. She had suspended a major acquisition in minutes. But asking me that question frightened her. I could see it. I stood. We were close enough that I could smell the faint perfume she wore to work. Celeste? Yes? I have liked you for almost 2 years. She stopped breathing. I continued before courage abandoned me. I liked you before the medicine. Before the cancelled meeting. Before everyone started talking. Why did you never tell me? You were my CEO. I still am. I noticed. Her mouth almost curved into a smile. Then her expression became serious again. Does that make this impossible? I wanted to say no, but pretending there were no consequences would have been dishonest. I don't know. Celeste nodded once. The careful mask began returning. Before I could fully settle, I reached for her hand. She looked down at our fingers. I said I don't know whether it will be easy. I didn't say I wanted to walk away. Her hand closed around mine. A knock interrupted us. Celeste released me before the door opened. Her executive assistant entered with a tablet. I'm sorry, Dr. Rowan. The independent review team found something. Celeste's expression changed immediately. What? They checked the patient records Mr. Mercer identified. The assistant looked at me. He was right. I felt the air leave my lungs. How serious? Celeste asked. Halcyon altered results from at least 2 trial sites. The legal department believes there may be criminal exposure. Celeste became perfectly still. The acquisition had not merely been risky. It could have destroyed Rowan Biomedical. Her assistant continued, there is another issue. What issue? The internal audit approval was signed by someone here. She placed the tablet in front of Celeste. A name appeared on the screen. My department director. The man who had told me to stop asking questions. Celeste read the document once, then looked at me. The concern in her eyes was no longer about the acquisition. It was about me. Because if the director had helped hide the altered data, then my questions had made me a problem. And someone inside Rowan Biomedical already knew I was the person who discovered the truth. By noon, Rowan Biomedical's legal department had sealed the clinical records. My department director, Martin Keene, was suspended. Security collected his laptop. The board demanded an explanation. And I was told not to leave the executive floor alone. I stared at Celeste across her office. That last part feels dramatic. It is necessary. Martin is a data director, not an assassin. We do not know what he is. He approved false records. And you exposed him. Celeste closed the blinds overlooking the hallway. That makes you a risk to anyone involved. I leaned against the edge of her desk. You canceled a board meeting because I had a fever. Now you're assigning security because I found duplicated spelling errors. Yes. You have a very intense management style. This is not management. The words came quickly. I looked at her. Celeste seemed to realize how they sounded, but once again, she did not take them back. What is it? I asked. Her jaw tightened. Concerned for an employee? For you. The answer left no room to hide behind titles. Before I could respond, her assistant entered. Dr. Rowan, the board is ready. Celeste nodded, then looked at me. You're coming. I frowned. To the emergency session? Yes. That will make the rumors worse. I am no longer making decisions based on rumors. She walked toward the door. I followed. The boardroom was already full. Adrian Vale sat near the center, surrounded by legal advisors and investors. Martin's empty chair remained at the table like evidence. The moment I entered beside Celeste, every conversation stopped. Adrian's expression hardened. Mr. Mercer should not be here. Celeste took her seat. He discovered the fraud. He is also a witness in an internal investigation, which is why he should hear what is being discussed about his work. Adrian glanced at me. This is precisely the problem. You are treating him as though he belongs in every room simply because you care about him. Silence spread across the table. No one had said it that directly before. Celeste did not look embarrassed. She looked dangerous. I invited him because he is relevant. And if your feelings are influencing you? I saw several board members lower their eyes. They expected Celeste to deny it. She did not. My feelings do not change the evidence. That was not my question. No, she said calmly. It was an attempt to make my private life more important than an internal crime. Adrian leaned forward. The company needs leadership without distractions. Celeste's voice became colder. Julian prevented Rowan Biomedical from acquiring falsified research. If caring about the person who protected this company is a distraction, then perhaps your definition of leadership is the problem. The room was completely still. I looked at her. She had defended my work before. This was different. She was defending me, not secretly, not after the meeting, in front of everyone. The general counsel opened a file. Our preliminary findings show Martin Keene received payments from an account linked to Halcyon's consulting division. Murmurs moved around the table. How much? One director asked. Just over $800,000. Adrian's confidence faded slightly. The counsel continued. We also recovered deleted messages suggesting he intended to remove Mr. Mercer from the acquisition review team. Celeste's fingers became still against the table. Remove him how? We do not know yet. The answer changed the atmosphere. This was no longer only about a contract. Celeste turned to me. Did Martin contact you after the meeting? No, did anyone? I thought about the calls I had ignored while sick. Most were from coworkers. One number had been unfamiliar. I received a call yesterday evening from a blocked number. Her expression sharpened. What did they say? I didn't answer. Show me. I handed her my phone. Celeste passed it to security without hesitation. Adrian sighed. This is becoming excessive. She looked at him. A senior employee accepted secret payments, concealed altered clinical data, and discussed removing the person who discovered it. Her voice dropped. What exactly would you consider an appropriate level of concern? He did not answer. By the end of the meeting, the board approved a full external investigation. The acquisition was terminated. Federal regulators would be notified. Rowan Biomedical had avoided a catastrophe, but Celeste was not relieved. The moment we returned to her office, she turned toward me. "You should stay somewhere else tonight." I stared at her. "You cannot be serious." "I am. I'm not entering witness protection. You are not going home alone. I have locks. You also open your door without checking who is outside. That happened once. You let your CEO enter. You had soup. That is not a security system." Despite everything, I laughed. Celeste did not. "Julian." Her voice softened. "Please." That word stopped me. Celeste Rowan issued instructions. She negotiated. She decided. She almost never asked. "Where am I supposed to stay?" "With me." I blinked. Her expression remained composed, but a faint color appeared along her cheeks. "You have security at your house," I said. "Yes. And a guest room?" "Several." "Right." A strange disappointment slipped through me. Celeste noticed. "You sound unhappy." "I'm not." "You are. You really choose inconvenient moments to read me accurately." She stepped closer. "I said there are guest rooms." "I heard you. I did not say you had to use one." My mind went completely blank. Celeste held my gaze for 2 seconds. Then she turned away and began gathering documents as though she had not just destroyed my ability to speak. "Celeste." "Yes. Was that a joke?" "No, that makes it worse." "Why?" "Because I'm trying to behave professionally." She looked back at me. "So am I. You invited me to sleep in your room." "I said you did not have to use a guest room." "That is the same thing." "No. My house also has a library." I stared at her. Then I saw it. The smallest hint of amusement in her eyes. "You are teasing me." "Perhaps. The Ice Queen CEO makes jokes?" "Only when one particular employee is difficult." I smiled despite myself. That evening, we left through the private garage. Celeste's security team drove us to her home overlooking the harbor. I had expected something cold and enormous. The house was elegant, but surprisingly warm. Books filled the shelves. A piano stood near the windows. A worn blanket rested over the couch. It looked lived in. It looked like her. Celeste placed her bag down. "You expected something different. A museum." "That is insulting. A very expensive museum." She removed her coat and glanced toward the kitchen. "Have you eaten?" "Not since lunch." "I'll make something." I followed her. "You cook?" "No." "Then why did you say that so confidently?" "Because you cooked soup from a container and still called it breakfast." "I was sick." "I noticed." We ended up making pasta together. Celeste read every instruction twice. I handled the sauce. She insisted on measuring the salt. For the first time since the investigation began, neither of us talked about Halcyon, the board, or Martin. We were simply Julian and Celeste. After dinner, I found the guest room prepared. Fresh towels, a glass of water, and the same brand of medicine she had brought to my apartment placed on the nightstand. I smiled. She had remembered my cough was not completely gone. There was a knock. Celeste stood in the doorway. "Do you need anything?" "No," she nodded but did not leave. Neither did I ask her to. "Finally," she said, "when I learned Martin may have targeted you, I was afraid." "I'm okay." "I know." She looked down. "That does not erase the fear." I stepped closer. "You don't have to protect me from everything." "I know. But you're going to try." "Yes." I smiled. "Why?" This time, she did not hide behind concern or responsibility. She looked directly at me. "Because losing the acquisition would have cost the company money." A pause. "Losing you would cost me something I could not replace." My chest tightened. Celeste turned to leave before I could answer. I reached for her hand. She stopped. "Stay," I said. Her fingers slowly closed around mine. "For how long?" I drew her closer. "Until neither of us has to pretend this is only concern." For once, the woman who always had an answer said nothing. She simply stepped into the room and closed the door behind her. Celeste stood inside the guest room with her hands still resting on the door. For once, neither of us knew what to say. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was fragile. One careless word could send us both back behind the walls we had spent years building. I still held her hand. Celeste looked down at our fingers, then slowly lifted her eyes to mine. "You asked me to stay," she said. "I did. Do you know what you were asking?" "Not completely." "That is not reassuring." "I'm trying to be honest." Her expression softened. "You usually are." I drew a slow breath. "I don't want this to become something we only admit when there is a crisis." Celeste became still. The fever, the investigation, Martin, all of it gave us reasons to stop pretending for a few minutes. I tightened my fingers around hers. But tomorrow, there will be meetings again. People watching us. Reasons to act like none of this happened. And you do not want that? No, the answer was easy. That was what surprised me most. I had spent nearly 2 years convincing myself that wanting Celeste was unrealistic, dangerous, and professionally irresponsible. Now that she was standing in front of me, I did not want to waste another moment hiding. Celeste stepped closer. What do you want, Julian? I looked at her. Dinner when neither of us is solving a company crisis. Her mouth moved slightly. Anything else? I want to be allowed to call you when I'm sick without causing an international incident. That was your fault. It was an accidental text. You should have answered my calls. I was unconscious. You were asleep. Very deeply. She almost smiled. I continued. I want to know what you do on Sundays. Work. That answer is depressing. It is accurate. Then I want to change it. Her eyes remained on mine. And? I hesitated, then raised my free hand and touched her cheek. Celeste stopped breathing. I want to kiss you, I said. The confidence disappeared from her face, not because she was frightened, because she had wanted the same thing and had never allowed herself to expect it. Is that part of your long-term plan? She asked quietly. No. You dislike planning? I dislike waiting. For a second, she simply watched me. Then Celeste closed the distance herself. Her kiss was careful at first, almost uncertain. The woman who could control an entire boardroom was trembling against me. I placed one hand in her waist, and she gripped the front of my shirt. The kiss deepened, not rushed, not dramatic, just years of restraint finally giving way. When we separated, her forehead rested against mine. You are still my employee, she whispered. I know. This could become complicated. I know. The board will question every decision I make involving you. I know. You keep saying that. Because none of it makes me want to leave. Celeste looked at me for a long moment. Then she kissed me again. This time, there was no uncertainty. We did not sleep much that night, not because anything happened that either of us would regret, because we talked for hours. Celeste told me about growing up with a mother who expected excellence and a father who disappeared whenever life became difficult. She told me Rowan Biomedical had started with 3 employees in a rented laboratory. She told me she had spent so many years protecting the company that she no longer knew how to build a life outside it. I told her about my parents, about losing them within 2 years of each other, about why I became the dependable one in every friendship, about how useful I had learned to be so nobody would notice how much I hated being alone. Celeste listened without interrupting. Near 3 o'clock in the morning, she said, that is why you never ask for help. Yes. Because you think people stay only when you are useful. I looked at the ceiling. It sounds worse when you say it. It is worse. I turned toward her. You are not supposed to agree. I am not going to lie to make you comfortable. There's the CEO again. No, she moved closer beneath the blanket. This is the woman who canceled a board meeting because you finally needed her. I smiled. I still think that was excessive. I would do it again. I know. Her hand rested against my chest. Julian? Yes? You do not have to earn care from me. The words reached somewhere deeper than I expected. I covered her hand with mine. And you do not have to be perfect for me. Celeste's eyes became glossy, but she blinked the emotion away. Do not tell anyone, I almost cried. I'll include it in the next board report. She pushed lightly against my shoulder. I laughed and she finally did too. The next morning, I woke alone. For one terrible second, I wondered if Celeste had regretted everything. Then I smelled coffee. I found her in the kitchen wearing a silk robe and reading emails while toast burned behind her. Your breakfast is on fire, I said. She turned, saw the smoke, and immediately switched off the toaster. I was managing it. You were ignoring it. I was reading an urgent message. The toast was more urgent. Celeste looked at the blackened bread. You can cook. That is not a compliment. It was intended as a request. I made breakfast while she watched from the counter. The scene felt dangerously domestic. I liked it too much. My phone rang just as I placed 2 plates on the table. The caller was security. I answered. Mr. Mercer, we found the source of the blocked call. Celeste's expression changed instantly. Who was it? I asked. Martin Keene. The warmth in the room disappeared. The security officer continued. He left a voicemail after the call failed. It was recovered from the carrier. What did he say? There was a pause. He told you to stop asking questions if you wanted to keep your job. Celeste stood. Her face became colder than I had ever seen it. Where is he now? Security heard her voice. He has not returned home. His attorney says he is unavailable. Celeste took the phone from me. Find him. She ended the call and immediately opened another contact. I caught her wrist. Celeste, he threatened you. He threatened my job. We do not know that was all he intended. You cannot solve this by declaring war on everyone. I can try. I smiled despite the tension. She did not. Listen to me, I said. I am here. I'm safe. For now. And I need you to trust the investigation. Her jaw tightened. You trusted me in the boardroom. I stepped closer. Now trust me outside it. Celeste looked at me. Slowly the anger in her expression changed into fear. I nearly lost you before I even had you, she whispered. I took her face in my hands. You have me. Her eyes searched mine. Say it again. You have me. I kissed her forehead. And I'm not going anywhere. By noon, Martin Keene surrendered to investigators. The immediate danger ended. The questions did not. Because that afternoon, Adrian Vale called another emergency board session. This time, the agenda was not halcyon. It was Celeste and me. And when we entered the boardroom together, Adrian placed a formal document on the table. Dr. Rowan, he said, the board requires you to make a choice. Celeste looked at the paper, then at me. Between what? Adrian's answer filled the room. Your position as CEO, he paused, and your relationship with Mr. Mercer. The boardroom went silent. Adrian Vale's document sat in the center of the table. A formal demand. A choice between Celeste's position as CEO and her relationship with me. I looked at her. Celeste did not touch the paper. She only asked, on what authority? Adrian folded his hands. The board has a responsibility to protect Rowan Biomedical from conflicts of interest. There is no conflict of interest. You invited Mr. Mercer into executive meetings because his work was relevant. You personally intervened in his medical care. He had a high fever and no one nearby. You brought him into your home. The room tightened. Adrian had clearly done his research. Celeste's expression did not change. My home is not company property. No, he said, but your judgment affects company stability. I felt anger rise. This was not about policy anymore. It was about punishing Celeste for refusing to behave the way they expected. I leaned forward. Then remove me from the acquisition team. Celeste turned to me immediately. No, it would eliminate the conflict. There is no conflict. Celeste knew her voice was sharp enough to stop me. She looked back at Adrian. You are asking me to end a personal relationship because Mr. Mercer exposed fraud that this board failed to detect. Adrian's jaw tightened. I am asking you to choose the company. I have chosen the company every day for 12 years. Then prove it. Celeste finally picked up the document. For 1 second, I thought she might sign it. Instead, she tore it in half. The sound was quiet. The effect was not. Several directors stared at her. Adrian's face hardened. Celeste placed the pieces back on the table. No, he stood. You should think carefully. I have. You are risking your position. Then call a vote. The room shifted. Nobody had expected that. Neither had I. Adrian stared at her. You would truly put your leadership to a vote over this? Celeste's voice remained calm. No, you are putting my leadership to a vote because you believe caring about someone makes me unfit to lead. She looked around the table. So, vote. No one spoke. Celeste continued. Before you do, review the facts. She opened the financial report. Rowan Biomedical's revenue increased 18% this year. Another page. Our hospital network expanded into 4 new regions. Another. We avoided a fraudulent acquisition because Julian Mercer noticed evidence every executive review missed. Her eyes moved from one director to the next. If you believe I am no longer capable of leading this company, vote against me. A pause. But do not pretend this is about protecting Rowan Biomedical. Her gaze returned to Adrian. This is about controlling a decision that was never yours. The chairman cleared his throat. We will vote. My heartbeat pounded. Celeste sat beside me, perfectly still. Under the table, I reached for her hand. She looked at me. You don't have to do this, I whispered. Yes, I do. For me, for myself. That answer silenced me. The vote began. One by one, directors stated their decisions. Confidence in Dr. Rowan. Confidence. Confidence. One vote against. Another vote against. Then more in support. When the final count was announced, Celeste retained her position by a decisive majority. The room released a breath. Adrian did not. The chairman looked at him. The matter is closed. Adrian gathered his papers. Not necessarily. Celeste's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? He pushed a second folder across the table. Rowan Biomedical's ethics policy prohibits direct reporting relationships and romantic partnerships. I opened the folder. This time, he had a valid point. Celeste could not remain my CEO while I continued reporting through her leadership chain. Adrian almost smiled. You may keep both your position and your relationship. A pause. But Mr. Mercer cannot remain in his current role. Celeste's hand tightened around mine. I understood immediately. If I stayed at Rowan Biomedical, every promotion would be questioned. Every assignment would look like favoritism. Every success would become hers instead of mine. I closed the folder. He's right. Celeste turned to me. No, this policy existed before us. We can restructure your reporting line and people will still question every decision. I do not care what people say. I do. Her expression changed. I lowered my voice. Not because I am ashamed of us. I looked around the boardroom. Because I do not want my career to become proof that I was only successful because you loved me. Celeste went quiet. That was the fear I had carried since the rumors began. Not that she would stop choosing me. That I would stop being able to choose myself. After the meeting, we returned to her office. Celeste stood by the window, arms folded. You are considering leaving? Yes. No, I almost smiled. That is not your decision. It can be. You cannot order me to stay. I can offer you another position. That would prove Adrian's point. I could create an independent division. For me? For your work. Celeste. She turned away. The anger was easier for her than fear. I walked toward her. I am not leaving you. You would be leaving the company. Yes. The company is part of my life. But it is not all of your life anymore. She looked at me then. I continued. I want to build something that is mine. Her eyes searched my face. What? A clinical integrity consultancy. The idea had formed during the investigation. Hospitals and medical companies needed people who could examine trial data without pressure from acquisition teams or investors. I could help companies find what everyone else misses. Celeste said nothing. I would not compete with Rowan Biomedical. That is not what concerns me. What does? Her voice lowered. That one day you will realize your life is easier without me in it. The honesty broke something in me. I stepped closer and took her hands. Celeste, leaving Rowan Biomedical is not leaving you. How can you be sure? Because the company was where I met you. I touched her cheek, but you are the person I chose. Her eyes became glossy. This time, she did not hide it. I kissed her gently. When we separated, she whispered, I hate this plan. I know. I may criticize it frequently. I expected that. I will review your business proposal. I did not ask you to. You should. I smiled. There she is. 2 weeks later, I submitted my resignation. Not because the board forced me out, because I wanted a future no one could claim Celeste had handed me. On my final day, employees gathered in the lobby. Miles hugged me hard enough to hurt. You accidentally texted the CEO that you were sick, he said. Now you're leaving to start a company. Not the career plan I expected. Celeste stood near the elevator, watching quietly. When the lobby emptied, I walked toward her. So, I said, I'm no longer your employee. No, does that mean you can stop pretending to be professional? Her eyes softened. I stopped pretending weeks ago. Then, in the middle of the lobby, where anyone could have seen us, Celeste took my face in her hands and kissed me. When she pulled back, she said, dinner tonight. Is that an invitation? No, an order. Her mouth curved. A date. I smiled. Then, yes. As I walked out of Rowan Biomedical, I looked back once. Celeste stood behind the glass doors. Not as my CEO. Not as the woman who had cancelled a board meeting. As the woman who had chosen me even when everyone demanded she choose something else. And for the first time, we were no longer hiding behind a company policy. We were simply beginning. 6 months after leaving Rowan Biomedical, I stood outside a conference room with my own company's name printed on the glass. Mercer Clinical Integrity. The office was not large. We had 8 employees, 3 hospital clients, and 1 coffee machine that sounded like it was preparing for emergency surgery every morning, but it was mine. Every contract had come from my work. Every client knew my name before they knew Celeste's. That mattered to me more than I had expected. Not because I wanted distance from her, because I wanted to stand beside her without feeling that I was standing in her shadow. My first major public presentation was at the Harbor Point Medical Ethics Summit. Hundreds of executives, researchers, hospital directors, and investors filled the hall. Rowan Biopharma Medical was one of the main sponsors. Celeste sat in the front row. She wore a dark blue suit, her posture perfect, her expression unreadable to everyone except me. I knew the truth. She was nervous for me. Before I walked onto the stage, my phone vibrated. A message from her: do not rush the third section. Drink water before the questions. I smiled. Is this professional advice or controlling girlfriend advice? Her reply came immediately. Both. Then another message appeared. You will be excellent. I stared at those words for a moment. 6 months earlier, I might have needed her confidence to believe in myself. Now, it simply reminded me that I was not alone. I stepped onto the stage. The presentation lasted 40 minutes. I spoke about manipulated trial records, weak oversight systems, and the dangers of allowing financial pressure to influence clinical reviews. I did not mention Halcyon by name. I did not need to. Everyone in the industry knew why Mercer Clinical Integrity existed. When the questions ended, the audience applauded. I looked toward the front row. Celeste was already standing. She did not clap politely. She looked proud, completely, openly proud. That meant more than the applause. Afterward, several hospital representatives approached me about future contracts. By the time the room emptied, I had 3 meetings scheduled for the following week. Celeste waited near the stage. I walked toward her. Well, I asked. You rushed the third section. I laughed. That is your first comment? No, she adjusted my tie just as she had in the elevator months earlier. My first comment is that you were excellent. Better. I also dislike your final slide. What was wrong with it? The font was too small. There she is. Celeste's mouth curved. You asked for my opinion. I asked whether you were proud of me. You did not. I was going to. She looked around the nearly empty hall. Then she took my hand. I am proud of you, Julian. The words were quiet, certain, and not because you proved anyone wrong. I squeezed her fingers. Why then? Because you built the life you wanted to pause and still made room for me in it. I looked at her. I did not make room for you. Her expression changed slightly. No, you were part of the plan from the beginning. For once, Celeste Rowan had no answer. That evening, she told me we were having dinner at her house. I arrived at 7 o'clock with flowers and a bottle of wine. The lights were low, the dining table was set, and Celeste was standing in the kitchen with smoke rising behind her. I immediately rushed toward the oven. What happened? I followed the recipe. You followed it incorrectly. The instructions were unclear. They said bake for 20 minutes. I was answering emails. I opened the oven and removed something that had once been salmon. Celeste folded her arms. It may still be edible. It has become a geological sample. She looked offended. I laughed and kissed her forehead. We'll order dinner. I wanted to cook for you. The disappointment in her voice softened me. You canceled a board meeting and brought me medicine when I was sick. That was different. How? You needed me. I touched her cheek. I still do. Her eyes lifted to mine. Just not for cooking. She narrowed them. You were doing well until that sentence. We ordered food from the small Italian restaurant near my old apartment. While we waited, Celeste became unusually quiet. She checked her phone 3 times, but did not answer any messages. Finally, I asked, what are you hiding? Nothing. You are a terrible liar. I run a medical technology company. That does not improve your lying. Her phone vibrated again. She picked it up too quickly, then froze. I watched her expression change. What happened? Nothing. Celeste. She looked at the screen, then at me. For the first time in months, she looked completely uncertain. Give me the phone. I said. Now, that made me more suspicious. I reached for it. She moved it behind her back. The Ice Queen CEO is hiding a text message? It was not meant for you. I stopped. Those words sounded familiar. Was it meant for someone else? Yes. Who? Your brother. I blinked. Why are you texting my brother? Celeste said nothing. My heartbeat began to change. Celeste. She slowly brought the phone forward. Read it. The unsent message was open on the screen. I bought the ring. Do you think Julian will say yes? I stared at it, then at her. Celeste's face had lost every trace of executive confidence. You bought a ring? Yes. You are asking my brother whether I would marry you? I wanted reliable information. He once convinced me to invest in a restaurant that closed in 3 weeks. I did not know that. You should have performed better due diligence. This is not funny. No, I said softly. It really isn't. Her shoulders tensed. I realized she thought I was refusing. I took the phone from her hand and placed it on the table. Then I held both of her hands. Celeste. Yes. Where is the ring? She hesitated before reaching into the pocket of her dress. The box was small and black. She opened it. Inside was a simple silver band. Elegant, precise, very Celeste. I had a speech, she said. What happened to it? I accidentally texted you. Technically, you showed me the draft. That is worse. I smiled. Then forget the speech. Her eyes searched mine. Julian Mercer, will you marry me? No boardroom voice, no careful strategy, just Celeste, the woman who had shown up at my apartment because I sent 2 accidental words. The woman who had chosen me when doing so was inconvenient, complicated, and public. I answered without hesitation. Yes. Her breath left her. Yes? Yes. I took the ring from the box and slipped it onto my finger myself. Celeste stared. You were supposed to let me do that. You took too long. Then I kissed her. When we separated, she rested her forehead against mine. I canceled a board meeting for you, she whispered. I remember. I challenged the board for you. I remember. I burned dinner for you. That may have been the greatest sacrifice. She laughed against my shoulder. Months later, we married in a small ceremony overlooking Harbor Point. Miles cried more than either of us. My brother told everyone he had helped Celeste choose the ring, though he had never seen it. The Rowan Biomedical Board attended. Even Adrian sent flowers. Celeste remained CEO. I continued building Mercer Clinical Integrity. We did not become less ambitious because we loved each other. We simply stopped believing ambition had to mean loneliness. On our first anniversary, I woke with a headache. Celeste was already preparing to leave for an investor meeting. I picked up my phone and sent her a message. I'm sick. She appeared in the bedroom doorway 10 seconds later. You are not sick. I smiled. Just checking. Checking what? That the message still reaches the right person. Her expression softened. She walked back to the bed, placed her hand against my forehead, and kissed me. It always will, and this time the message was not an accident. That's all for today. Remember to subscribe and support us.